thank you everybody for coming along. As you know, this evening is in two halves. The next 20 minutes or so are an open meeting of the Queen Edith Community Forum, which is a chance for us to tell you about what we're doing and give you an idea of some of the ways you might like to get involved with some of our projects. We'll then have a short break while we shuffle everybody around. We bring the candidates for the hustings up here, and then Chris will take over and the evening will proceed from there. A couple of bits of housekeeping. We're not expecting a fire alarm. If the fire alarm goes, please exit the building and we will all convene out of the front. Toilets are at the back, and we're very fortunate that Antony Carpen is here filming tonight's event. If anybody has a problem with being filmed, ideally they would be sitting somewhere immediately in Antony's vicinity, but he promises to be very kind with the footage, that's what he's told me. So let's crack on. Queen Edith Community Forum, it has been around for probably about 10 or 15 years, we think. It was something that grew out of St James's Church on Wolfston Way. The team you see assembled up here this evening is a very new team. We kind of took the organisation over about a year ago because the previous chair was leaving Cambridge and nobody else in the organisation at the time seemed to want to take it over. Hopefully we've brought some energy to it. Hopefully people are beginning to see some of the activity that's going on. Tonight is another manifestation of that. We want to be out and accessible and getting people together. It covers more or less the geographical ward of Queen Edith, though we do sometimes play a bit fast and loose with the boundaries if there's somebody we'd really like to talk to beyond that. We're independent of all political parties and all faith groups, and we've really spent the last year building relationships as much as anything. So with our local councillors, we hope to have a profitable relationship with whichever of tonight's candidates succeeds in their quest to be elected, with Cambridge City Council and its officers, with local GP practices, schools, churches, all of that kind of social infrastructure, with leisure and culture and environment-related groups locally, and with our local institutions and businesses, because I think Queen Edith has some big institutions on its doorstep which aren't necessarily very good at reaching out to the people who live around it. So this afternoon I was in Addenbrooke's talking to the arts director there about how we can work with them to get some synergies, I guess. And similarly with the Junction, just up the road. You know, that's an arts organisation that we should have a better relationship with locally, but it hasn't seemed to have happened organically, so now we're trying to make it happen. In terms of how we're funded, we get a small grant from the City Council, about £1,200 this year. It's just been approved. We're very fortunate that we have done a sponsorship deal with Hill Residential, who are the builders behind the Magna development behind Homerton and also the Nine Wells development down at the bottom of Babraham Road. They've given us £1,500 for each of the next 2 years, which we'll use to cover some of the costs of producing the newsletter that Chris will talk about in a minute. And we otherwise raise money through advertising sales in the newsletter and collections and donations. We are properly financially regulated in as much as we have an account with Cambridge Building Society and our accounts are examined annually by the City Council. So we're, you know, for a community group, I think we're relatively well constituted. And the point of telling you all of this is to then help you understand what our goals are, what we're trying to achieve. I think it comes down to the strapline, which is making Queen Edith a better and brighter place to be. But then 3 separate strands to that. The first one is about information dissemination. I think as a community in the past, we haven't been very smart about letting each other know things that are going on. So one of the things that the forum can clearly do through the communication channels that we've developed is help people know what's happening on their patch. And Chris is going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The second thing is putting on activities ourselves to get people out, active in the community, and talking to their neighbours, being around the place, making this a more lively place to live. And the third thing is to try and build a greater sense of identity, including the new neighbourhoods that are developing here, because that's going to be important. As development pressures grow, it's important that people know who their neighbours are and feel a sense of ownership. I read an astonishing statistic earlier this week that over 20% of the population of Cambridge leaves Cambridge every year. That's the kind of rate of churn, and particularly around the hospital, that's very prevalent. So building some sort of sense of shared identity is very important to all of us, and we have various projects we're working on to try and advance that. So I'm going to now let each of the people sitting with me talk about the areas that they're involved with, just so you get a sense of the breadth of what we're up to. And I'm going to start with Chris, who does all our communications.
Thanks, Sam. My name's Chris Rand, and I'm really, I suppose, in charge of the communications we do. So the main thing which you would, the main thing you would see from us physically is the Queen Edith Community News, which we started or relaunched last year, and we do that 3 times a year, really to sort of coincide with the end of the school terms or the beginning of the school holidays. And the idea of that is to make sure that everybody gets to see what we've done. Obviously, it's fiendishly expensive and difficult to get something printed through every letterbox in the area, but it's definitely worth it. My own thoughts on Queen Edith are that we do need to develop a real proper identity somehow. I mean, the south area of Cambridge consists of Cherry Hinton, Queen Ediths and Trumpington, and both Cherry Hinton and Trumpington are conventional sort of villagey type areas with a definite centre, and you could put a sign up and say welcome to our part of town. Queen Edith has always seems to have been a bit in the middle. But I don't think that needs to be the case. I think we can have just as much, or if not more, of an identity. So it'll be great if we can help do that. So that's our main thing. Then we also have, as you would imagine, a website which is queenediths.info. And I think potentially most exciting of all is our weekly What's On newsletter, which a lot of you will get, I'm sure. If you don't, there's a clipboard there on the table which you can sign up afterwards if you want to drop your email down. But I think that's going out to about 300 and something residents now, which is about a tenth of the ward, which is not bad for a first year. And we just list all the events we can find. So if any of you are involved in any events and they're not covered, just drop us an email at hello@queenediths.info, and we'll make sure it goes out in the weekly email. And also with the email list, that does give us an opportunity to put out other messages about what we're doing as well as just the standard What's On. So those are our communications efforts at the moment. If people have any particular ideas about how we can improve them or what they'd like to see in them, particularly the community news, then have a word with me afterwards or drop me an email anytime.
Great, thank you.
And we've got a new Facebook page this week. I'm sorry, Rebecca, which Rebecca did, yeah. And actually, potentially, that could be quite influential, because obviously a lot of people go on Facebook and barely touch the web nowadays. So yes, that's definitely worth having a look at.
So the lady who just spoke from the back is another member of the team, Rebecca, who tells me she's too shy to come and sit at the front and talk, but apparently doesn't have a problem chipping in from the back. So, so I have to do Rebecca's bit for her. The project is called Queen Edith in Bloom, and it's based on the fact that there's already several projects in the area to do with green spaces, gardening, sustainable food production, those kinds of things. We've got rock allotments, we've got the community garden at Nightingale Park, we've got the garden at Rock Road Library. And the environment more generally is, I think, going to be of interest to people as the development pressures keep coming. So There was the campaign to try and dissuade the biomedical campus expansion out towards Nine Wells recently, and there are other nature reserves locally which people value. And the idea of Queen Edith in Bloom really is to act as a kind of umbrella whereby these projects can share information and share resources, think practical things like tool libraries. And who knows where it could go? I mean, there's opportunities for guerrilla gardening, we could do an open gardens day for charity, but as a start, we've applied to register with the RHS Britain in Bloom scheme, and we're waiting to hear back about that. And basically Rebecca in the pink, is it pink? Pink at the back is our coordinator, so if you have ideas and thoughts, please do get in touch with her. She's got bags of energy and bags of enthusiasm, and she will milk you for everything you're worth, so have a word. Can I take questions in a minute? Is that all right, Peter? Thank you. And the next member of the Dream Team is Roger, sitting on the end there.
Very briefly, can I also just welcome you here on behalf of the church, St John's Church, because I'm treasurer here, and I'm very pleased to have a meeting like this as part of the community. I've lived in the parish in Queen Edith for 25 years, as well as being treasurer here. I also run the church website. For the last 2 years, I've been very closely involved with the history project at Rock Road Library, which I hope all of you have been to visit, looking at the involvement of this area in the First World War. But as of about a couple of months ago, Sam's approached me and talked about setting up a Queen Edith history project, which is, there are precedents for other parts of the city, but it's going to be really quite an interesting venture for this part. We do have a history in Queen Edith. I mean, most of the housing is really only just over 100 years old, but a lot has happened in that time. I've been in touch with the Museum of Cambridge, who now have their own website for hosting local history information about Cambridge. It's called Capturing Cambridge. Has anyone here actually visited the Capturing Cambridge website? Brilliant, good, okay. Well, as you'll see at the moment, all they've captured is Mill Road and a bit of Arbury. But hopefully, when I get my training within the next couple of weeks, I will become the sort of editor for this part of Cambridge, and what we'll be doing is putting lots and lots of links about people, places, historic buildings, bits about perhaps the history of this area over the last few hundred years. It is actually, we do know who owned the land in this part of Cambridge going back almost 1,000 years. So what will be happening, hopefully, within the next month or so, I will start to put information up on the Capturing Cambridge website. At that point, I will be looking for publicity through the Cambridge Community Forum, because the more we can get information, evidence, pictures, anecdotal stories, interviews with the people who live here or have lived here in the past, the richer this resource is going to be. And I was talking with Sam this morning, and we say it's a wonderful opportunity for us to go out into community, to talk to older people who remember what life was like here 40, 50, 60 years ago. But then also to go into schools and show the children of Morley and Queen Edith and elsewhere that actually they are living in an environment which is rich in history, rich in associations. And so, we hope it's a win-win situation. Everyone will be involved one way or the other in providing us with interesting information, or in actually learning about the environment they live in. So, it's early days. Nothing has actually gone up yet, and I still don't know how to do it. But I've been promised I will have a training session within the next couple of weeks, and then hopefully it's all go from there. Thank you.
Okay, so watch this space. And the last thing I really wanted to talk about was the kind of events programme that we've got lined up for the rest of this year. There's a listing on the board over there, but the first thing to draw to your attention is next Sunday morning, the 1st of May, Bank Holiday weekend. We're doing a walk from the Queen Edith pub up to the Beechwoods Nature Reserve, which is one of my favourite places. And we thought it would be nice to take people up there who maybe aren't familiar with it, and also then go back to the pub and have a decent roast lunch afterwards. So that's next Sunday morning. We're organising a picnic concert outside the shops on Wolfston Way on the 17th of June. We're involving children from Queen Edith's and Netherhall, the local choir who meet in one of the adult choir who meet in one of the schools, and local musicians, just for a nice, relaxed, obviously sunny couple of hours, trying to bring some life and vitality to that green space in the evening. 29th of June, we've organised with the cooperation of Homerton College a walk around their gardens. It will be just after graduation, which is obviously the point they try to get their gardens to peak at, so hopefully that will be a very pleasant hour in the company of their head gardener. Wild Weekend at Nightingale Park at the beginning of July. We're bringing the City Council Play Scheme to Nightingale Park in August to put on an Olympics theme event for children. We have the Community Action Morning in early September, and so on. We're going to try and see how many of these events we can marshal over the course of the year, and that will culminate with the Winter Festival on the 11th of December. In terms of where we go for the future, I think there's three strands of activity that look promising. The first, and we've already talked about it, is collaboration to get more arts activity of whatever flavour into this community. Hence talking to the Junction, talking to Addenbrooke's, talking to lots of providers to see what we can do there. And Rock Road Library, I should give them a big heads up, because they have now got a writer in residence, and I'm meeting her tomorrow to see how we can maybe work with her. I would like to see more sports and exercise activities available for the community here. We have the fitness equipment in Nightingale Park. Let's see if it's possible to do something maybe for teenagers or older people to get out and use that more, or a walking football team. We have bags of ideas. The third thing is sort of looking at the development that's coming onto our patch, and maybe thinking about what we as a community can do to help influence that through a neighbourhood plan, or talking to the developers on the biomedical campus and making sure that they understand that they are part of this neighbourhood too, so when they're developing their public art strategy or thinking about their green spaces, they need to be talking to residents as well, so we can all share and benefit from the growth that's happening around us. Can I just open it up to questions from the floor, if there are any?
I'm an enthusiastic member of Rebecca's gang, but there are other, I'm not sure if we've mentioned them, the gardening initiatives in the area. Of course, there's the Clay Farm, Glebe Farm development at where they've got a show house which is going to be turned into some sort of community space, and they've got a community bar there once a week or once a month, and they've got the space in front of it which is going to be used for a community garden, and it's open to all of us, not just the people living on that particular estate. Within shouting distance of a long road, 200 yards going towards town, down by the Conduit Road, there's Empty Common Community Garden, where we've got 15 allotments, and what we're producing is marvellous, I think, rather like Rebecca's gang, producing a whole range of foods and flower arrangements, encouraging children to come in, encouraging parents to come in from Ocordia. I think this is just the start of a development which is, of course, with transition and other groups within the community really taking off in terms of involving people. I also think it's got a lot to say about loneliness and isolation in our community. I live alone. Not many people speak to each other in my block of flats, which is absurd. There are ways of doing it, and one of those routes, I think, is community gardening.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll be drawing on your wisdom in the months ahead, and I think that what the Queen Edith Simply Working Group will do is give us a really flexible way of collaborating with the kind of organisations you're talking about. Anybody else? Yes, George.
Yeah, regarding the history of Queen Edith, there is a gentleman who lives in Nightingale Avenue, and he has done a lot of work and a lot of research.
Sanders,
yes.
Yeah.
If you don't know about him, I can put you in touch.
I have been told about him recently. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Anybody? Wendy?
Just on the history side, I was told by an older resident of the area that this area has a very big history, a medical history. And I'm just wondering whether it might be worth connecting with the biomedical campus for, some sponsorship, etc. Because a lot of the roads around here are actually named after doctors.
Yeah, well, thank you, Wendy. That's actually interesting. I've just actually come from a meeting with someone, with a lady called Sarah Bayliss, and she's going to be curating the next stage of the Rock Road Library exhibition, and we are going to be focusing on the medical involvement of this area during the First World War and post First World War, and she's an expert on the First Eastern General Hospital. So yeah, I think something the medical tradition, the history of this area, is something that's very important, and I will be translating the work that we do for the Rock Road exhibition onto the website that represents the whole of Queen Edith. Yeah.
In case I forget it, because obviously there's a connection with the purse too, because that's medical too.
Yeah, yeah.
Stephen Purse, and also the fact that St Thomas's Hospital owned a lot of the land.
Yeah, of course.
So again, another connection.
They owned Fendon Field, which was basically much of the land that all your houses live on. So.
I think this is what's going to be so fascinating about it. There are just going to be avenues to explore everywhere, and as long as Roger doesn't get bored, we'll be able to.
No, I think I might get overwhelmed.
Anybody else? Okay. Oh, yes.
You said anything that's happening is to go in the newsletter, but presumably anything moderately local with some excuse for local connection. I'm just wondering how far afield. I mean, there's the bike ride to Reach Fair, which is a thing,
no,
but I mean that's not a local thing.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it. So I think the idea it comes back to that idea about local identity, and trying to give people the idea that they don't always have to leave Queen Edith in order to do something. If that makes sense. Anyone else? Sorry, I'm rattling through these because I'm conscious of the time getting on. Okay, the last thing I want to say is how to get involved. It's really, really, really easy. You just come and talk to us after the meeting, you join the email list, you come to one of our events, you talk to your friends, your neighbours about us, and you let us know what you'd like to see happening and what you can contribute. There's no limit to our ambition. It's probably quite a dangerous mindset to have, but there genuinely is no limit to our ambition. But at the moment there are very definite limits on resources, both in terms of people and in terms of money. And we would really appreciate the support of the community to help us overcome some of those limits. And I'm now going to put in a fairly blatant bit of begging. This event tonight is costing us £100 in room hire and PA hire and so on. We think it's completely worth it in order to make democracy transparent, both to the people in the room and the people who can't be here tonight but who might watch on the video that Antony's recording. We are going to have our collection buckets out at the end of the evening, and we'd really like it if you could just drop something in on your way past, because it all helps. And that's it, I'm done. We'll now have a quick swap over, we'll get the candidates up here and then we'll crack on with the hustings. Thank you.